Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Muhammad Abrar. Welcome to today's lecture. As you know, we have divided this chapter into three parts. So this is the third part, this is the third and the final part, and I aim to give you a comprehensive understanding in this part about the market equilibrium, the price ceiling, and the price floors. So let's start. The market equilibrium. In economics, equilibrium represents a state where the quantity demanded by consumers match the quantity supplied by the producer at some specific price level. So this equilibrium price is determined by the interactions of demand and supply curve on a graph, reflecting a point of balance in the market. At this price, the buyers are willing to purchase exactly the amount that sellers are willing to sell, leading to the market stability or equilibrium. When the market price is set above the equilibrium level, there will be a surplus occurs because producers supply more goods or services compared to the consumers are willing to buy at that higher prices. So this surplus exerts the downward pressure on the prices as sellers compete to attract the buyers. So eventually pushing the market towards the equilibrium. Vice versa, conversely, when the prices falls below the equilibrium, a shortage emerges where the demand exceeds the supply. So this shortage promotes the upward pressure on prices as the consumption bid up prices to rescue the goods. So the price will be restored and the equilibrium will be restored in the market. So the rotation functioning of the prices refers to their role in allocating the scarce resources effectively or efficiently. So the prices always act as as a signals that guide the producers to allocate the resources toward the production of goods and services that consumer value the most. In this way, the resources are directed to where they can generate the highest return, promoting economic efficiency and maximize the social welfare. So, an efficient allocation that occurs at the equilibrium where resources are utilized optimally to meet the consumer's demand. This ensures that the economy achieves allocative efficiency where goods and services are distributed in a manner that maximizes the overall welfare. So efficient allocation reflects a balance where the marginal benefit to consumers equal the marginal cost to producers, ensuring that resources are not wasted or underutilized in the production process. So efficient allocation, we having a productive efficiency and at the same on the other hand we have an allocative efficiency. Productive efficiency is achieved when goods and services are produced at a lowest possible cost. So utilizing the most advanced technology available. So this means minimizing the wastage of the resources and optimizing the production process to reduce the per unit cost. It involves the factors such as improving the production techniques, adopting the innovative technologies, and streamlining the operations to increase the output efficiency. Meanwhile, the allocative efficiency, on the other hand, that that ensures resources are allocated in such a way that the combination of goods and services produced maximize the societal welfare. This involves producing the right mix of goods and services that are most desired and valued by the consumers. In a competitive market, allocative efficiency occurs when price of a good reflects is the marginal cost of production, ensure that resources are directed toward producing the goods that the consumers are willing to pay for at a price that covers the cost of production. So it aligns the production with consumer preferences and ensure that society's resources are utilized effectively to meet the desired needs and desires of individuals and consumers. So together these concepts underpin the efficient allocation and utilization of resources in an economy, contributing to the overall economic growth and welfare. If we can see the market equilibrium in the market, for example, we have an example for the corns market. So in the market of corn, equilibrium is where the quantity demand equals the quantity supply as shown in this diagram. This is determined by the intersection of the downward sloping demand curve, that is representing the D, and the upward sloping supply curve, which is represented with the S. At the equilibrium price of $3 per bushel and the equilibrium quantity is 7,000 bushels per week, the market clears without shortages and the surplus. When the price of a corn is below the equilibrium level, such as $2 per bushel, so there is an excess demand because the consumer want to buy more corn at the lower prices than the producer are willing to supply. That create a shortage. So this shortage motivate the sellers to rise their prices to capture more profit because there is a shortage, thereby driving the price towards or upwards upwards toward equilibrium. As the prices rises from $2 towards $3, the quantity supplies increased as more producer find it's profitable to enter the market or increase their output, while the quantity demanded decreases as the consumer reduce their demand due to the higher prices. So this process continues until the market reach back to the equilibrium price of $3. Conversely, when the price of corn exceeds to the market equilibrium level, such as $4 per bushel, so there is excess supply because the producers are supplying more corn than the consumer are willing to buy at that higher price level. That's creating a surplus. This surplus promotes the sellers to lower their prices to attract the more buyers, causing the price to decrease. As the price drops from $4 towards the $3, the quantity demanded increases as the consumer find corns more affordable at the lower prices. So while the quantity supplied decreases as the producer reduce their output due to the lower prices or due to the lower profitability. This adjustment continues until the market reach back to the equilibrium price of $3 and quantity of 7,000 bushels per week. At equilibrium, there is neither a shortage nor a surplus of corns, ensuring that the market clears efficiently based on the interplay of the demand and supply forces. So if we talk about the rotationing function of prices, the rotationing function of prices refers to how the market forces of demand and supply interact to determine an equilibrium price in a competitive market. In this context, the prices act as signals that balance the quantity of goods supplied by producers with the quantity demand by the consumers. When demand exceeds the supply at a given prices, the shortage drives prices up, signaling producers to increase the supply and encourage the consumers to reduce their demand. Conversely, if the supply exceeds the demand, the prices will fall, promoting the producers to decrease the supply and encourage the consumer to increase their demand. This continuous adjustment process ensures that resources are efficiently allocated according to the consumer's preferences and production capabilities. So thus achieving a balance or equilibrium where buying and selling decisions are in equilibrium. So the concept underscore the dynamic nature of market economies where prices plays a crucial role in coordinating the economic activity without the need for centralized planning or a third party intervention. We have a different examples in change in demand and equilibrium. So we can say if the demand curve will be shifted upward and downward, so the equilibrium in the market will be changed. So when there is an increase in demand, let's suppose for a good or services, that depicting in the left side diagram here, where the several key economic outcomes follow. Firstly, the demand curve shifts to the rightward. So the demand is increased, indicating that at any given price level, the consumers are now willing to buy more of the product. So as a result, the equilibrium price of the good and the services will rise, reflecting the increase the willingness of consumer to pay the higher prices to obtain the now more desired product. Simultaneously, the equilibrium quantity exchange, which is amount bought and sold at these new higher prices, will also increase. So this dynamic illustration the basic law of demand and its effect on market equilibrium. As the demand increases, both price and the quantity exchange will rise, assuming no simultaneous shift in the supply to offset this demand increase. And vice versa, on the right side diagram, if there is a decrease in the demand, that illustrate in the right side diagram leads to a contrasting the economic adjustment. So here the demand curve shift the leftward or downward, indicating that the consumers are now less willing to purchase the product at any given price level. So often due to the factors like changing the preferences or decrease the disposable income or out of the product is out of the trend. So consequently, the equilibrium prices of the product will decline to entire buyers who are now less willing to pay the higher prices, aligning with their reduced demand. Similarly, the equilibrium quantity exchange will decrease as the seller adjusts to their lower demand by producing and selling less of the product at the new price. So lowering the price point and lowering the equilibrium quantity. So this inverse relation between the demand, price and quantity exchange demonstrate the fundamental principle of market dynamics, where shift in demand influence both price levels and the volume of the goods and services exchanged in the market. On the other hand, if we can see the changes in the supply and equilibrium, so in economics, the change in supply has significant implications for market equilibrium, influencing both price and the quantity exchange. Again, as we saw in the previous diagrams when the demand was changing and it's affecting the price and the equilibrium quantity. Similarly, if the supply will be changed, it will also affect the prices and the equilibrium quantity. Let's suppose if we can see an increase in supply depicting on the left side diagram of a supply and demand graph occurs when factors such as the technological advancement that lower the input cost and increase the production capacity enable the producers to offer more goods and services at every price level. So this results in a rightward shift to the supply curve. So as a consequence, the equilibrium price will decrease because now there is a more supply compared to the demand. So the price will decrease while the equilibrium quantity exchange will increase. The decrease in price reflects the greater availability of the product as sellers compete to attract more buyers by offering the lower prices. So the consumers responds by purchasing more at the lower prices, hence the increase in the quantity exchange. Vice versa, a decrease in supply as shown in the right side diagram here, where the supply curve shift to the left arises from the factors like adverse weather conditions, maybe increase the production cost, maybe the reduced availability of the raw material, etc. This construction This contraction in supply leads to an upward shift in the supply curve or leftward shift in the supply curve. So consequently, the equilibrium prices will rise because now the supply is quite less compared to the demand. So while the equilibrium quantity exchange will decrease. So the high prices incentivize the producers to allocate the scarce resources quantity exchange decreases. So that allocate the scarce resources efficiently and maximize the profit, resulting a reduce in quantity exchange as the consumer adjusts their purchasing decisions in response to the higher cost. We have more complex cases when the demand and supply change simultaneously. So when analyzing a simultaneous shift in supply and demand, the several detailed consideration arises. Like look at the first one. When supply increases and demand decreases. So just imagine a scenario when in the market the supply has been increased but the demand has been decreased. So the equilibrium price is expected to decrease because the supply is a higher and the demand is a lower, so the price is supposed to be decreased. Maybe due to the greater availability of the goods and the services, reduce the consumer demand. However, resulting equilibrium quantity trade will depend on whether the decrease in demand offset the increase in supply or vice versa. So it will remain infinity or not infinity, indeterminate. So we cannot determine it will be increase or decrease. Meanwhile, in the second, if supply decreases and the demand increases simultaneously, the equilibrium price will rise because the supply is less and the demand is more. So the price is expected to increase as the scarcity of the goods increase alongside the heightened consumers' demand. Here too, the resultant equilibrium quantity will be contingent upon the relative magnitude of the shift in the supply and demand. So it will remain indeterminate. It can be increased or it can be decreased. In the third case, where both supply and demand change in the same direction, I mean, supply is increased and demand is also increased, or the supply is decreased and the demand is also decreased. So if the changes happens in the same direction, either both increase or both decrease, the impact on equilibrium prices and the quantity becomes more nuanced. When both increase, the equilibrium quantity tend will invertibly rise, reflecting the heightened availability and demand. However, the equilibrium price will be hinged on which shift is promptly larger. A larger increase in supply might moderate the price inverse driven by the higher demand, and vice versa. So the prices will remain indeterminate. It can be higher and it can be lower. So these dynamics underscore the complex interplay between supply and demand in determining the market outcomes. They highlight the importance of assigning the magnitudes and direction of these shifts to predict how equilibrium prices and quantities will adjust in response to changing the market conditions through the change in market supply and market demand. The next most important concept is government set prices. Sometime instead of the market forces that supply and demand, sometimes the government intervene to set the prices. And we explain this through the price ceiling or price floor. So the price ceiling typically intervenes in the market where policymakers perceive the goods or services are essential or necessity or where they aim to protect the consumers from perceived exploitations by the suppliers. So by setting a price ceiling below the equilibrium, the policymakers intend to ensure affordability, particularly for goods like housing, essential utilities, or agriculture products. However, the consequences of this intervention often leads to the several economic distortions. Firstly, the rotationing problem emerge as the demand exceeds the supply. So if the government or the policymakers intervene to set the market price below the equilibrium price, that's called price ceiling, and they cap the prices. So the consumers willing to pay more at the equilibrium prices face a shortage or long waiting times due to the insufficient supply. Supply will be the less and the people or the consumers are demanding more. So the suppliers facing the reduced profitability may cut back on the productions or investments. And secondly, black markets often develops where the transactions occurs at the price exceeding the legal maximum. So these underground markets arises due to the disparity between the artificially low prices ceiling and actual market value that willing buyers and sellers. So in short, while the price ceilings aims to promote affordability and to protect the consumers, they may often generate unintended consequences that impact the market efficiency and resource allocation negatively. If we if we can look at this diagram, the price ceiling that's denoted at the PC, the price ceiling is a legal maximum price imposed. Yeah, here you can see if the market equilibrium price is $3.5 and the price ceiling is $3. So the price ceiling is set lower than the market price. So when price ceiling is set below the equilibrium price, which is where the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied, it creates a situation where the demand exceeds the supply. So this leads to a persistent shortage of the product in the market. So at the $3, the producers are ready to sell the less output as of the consumers are demanding. Consumers demand is much higher than the supply, that create a shortage. This shortage is visually represented by the horizontal distance between QD and the QS on the supply and the demand graph. This graph signify the quantity demand exceeds the quantity supply at the price ceiling PC, highlighting that not all consumers who want to buy the product at that price can find it available. Such shortages can result in inefficiencies or black markets or the challenges in distribution as suppliers may struggle to meet the demand under the imposed price constraints. And And secondly, the authorities can set the price floor. So a price floor is a government imposed minimum price set above the equilibrium market price. This intervention aimed to raise the income to producers by ensuring they receive a higher price for their goods and services. However, when the price floor is set uh, above the equilibrium price, it creates a situation where the quantity supply exceeds the quantity demand, leading to a chronic surplus or excess supply. So this surplus persists because the consumers are unwilling and unable to purchase the goods and the services at the higher prices, while the producers are incentivized to supply more supply due to the high profit margins. So a classic example of price floor is the minimum wage law. Every country have the minimum wage law. When the government set a minimum wage law that always set above the equilibrium wage rate, that would naturally prevail in the labor market. It can lead to maybe unemployment or underemployment as the supply of labor exceeds the demand at the higher wages. So this situation parallels other market effect by price floor where the efforts to support the producers or the workers through the mandated minimum prices can unintentionally disrupt the market equilibrium and create persistent surplus. So understanding these dynamics is crucial for evaluating the effectiveness and unintended consequences of price control in various economic contexts. If we can look the diagram of the price ceiling, a price floor. So a price floor that is denoted as the PF mean price floor, that represents a minimum legal price set above the equilibrium price in the market. So when the price floor exceeds the equilibrium price, typically denoted as PE is a equilibrium price, it leads to the persistent surplus of the product. So this surplus is visually depicted by the horizontal distance between the quantity supplied QS and quantity demand QD. So the surplus arises when the suppliers are motivated to produce more at the higher price PF, leading to an excess of the good that consumers are unwilling to purchase at the elevated price level. So economically, this situation indicates inefficiency in resource allocation as goods produced go unsold, potentially leading to waste or the storage cost unless the market adjustment or the government intervention occurs. So this explains outline how price floors can disrupt the market equilibrium, leading to the consequences such as the surplus due to the disparity between supply and demand at the mandate minimum price. Along with all this discussion, we came to the end of this enlightening lectures. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every of you who is watching this video. So if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts or reflections that arises after this lecture, please feel free to share them in the comment section. Thank you once again for being a part of this virtual gathering. I look forward to seeing your comments and engaging with you further. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. And please don't forget to like and subscribe this channel. Thank you very much.